Hey everyone, welcome. This is Mr. Hines. Welcome to day 3 of the scientific revolution. Today, as you can see, I have two moths here. You probably learned about this before, maybe in your ecology class, maybe in biology. And this is what's called the pepper moth, right? They come in two colors. Some of them are in white, and some have this like grayish brown, right? And remember, it's an adaptation. It's an evolutionary thing that they've developed. Some of them are able to be white, but that's because they live in environments where white is a more common color. This pepper moth, instead, is able to blend in with its surroundings, as you can see, and with the tree. And this is something that we can attribute to this guy, Charles Darwin, who came up with the idea of evolution. And as you'll see in your readings today, mainly one reading. It's a longer one, but it's just one reading. It's about what's called spontaneous generation, which was the earliest theory of evolution, which basically said that, sorry about my notification, it basically said that organisms just appeared out of nowhere. There was an actual, thing that they caused them to develop. You know, that many microorganisms, when they put together, they form something much bigger, like mold, for example. Mold, the actual spore, one spore mold you cannot see. Instead, it takes thousands, millions. Why? Because mold is just like this. It's a cell, right? And you've learned, yes, sorry about that, about cells and going through what's called mitosis, right? Which allows it to replicate DNA and create more cells. And that increase in cells is what creates that single massive organism, massive being relative, meaning like visible to the eye in our case, right? And so during the scientific revolution, they said, no, there's something else. And later on, they come to develop the microscope, which allowed people to be able to see things much closer to the eye, right? Just like with flies. So, as I said, there's this guy named Charles Darwin, right? And he came up with the evolutionary theory. And one of those theories, well, before we begin, we have to say, what's a scientist, right? At first, they were philosophers, people who were thinking. And for the longest time, that's all they did. They thought, right? They didn't look into this stuff. They didn't really examine anything past. They asked why, but they didn't search out what really was the why. That's what scientists were later on. That's the scientific revolution, right? And so these people often ask themselves why. They came up with theories and stuff. For example, one of those theories was the idea of the elephant, right? Some, at first, they were like, oh, well, the elephant just can, stretch its trunk, and then by stretching the trunk, it can reach the leaves. You've seen that also with the giraffe. However, that's not real. That doesn't happen. Instead, it was basically because some elephants had short trunks, others had longer ones, and the ones that had longer ones were able to get the food and be happy, just like this elephant. So, spontaneous generation allows for not just evolution to occur, right? As you know that sometimes different traits can be passed on, right? As you can see in this wonderful diagram here. But sometimes they can create new organisms. That's why you can have a whole field of all these flowers. And that's why you can also have all these kinds of birds, right? These are all the birds that were found on the Galapagos Islands when Darwin was traveling all throughout, trying to figure out where all the animals came from, what they did, and etc. See the turtles? So anyway, all this is to say that I want you to really pay attention, because none of this, is spontaneous. This occurs. Usually there's what's called natural selection, meaning those with the best traits often survive. Longer legs, etc. Longer, ones which have longer necks, naturally, not stretching them. You can't work out and then pass on your traits. You already know that, etc. And then, there was a fight with the church. And for the longest time, the church was like, no, this doesn't occur. But then they tried to, say, no, there's an intelligent design. There has to be. It's just nothing's an accident. There has to be some sort of design. And that's where this theory comes from. And that's where we're going to leave it for now. Hope you guys are alright. Able to, have some free time, watch Netflix, listen to songs, and yeah, hope to see you guys soon. I actually do miss you. Have fun. Bye.